Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine from SCB Housing, and this is going to be the lottery for the 58 rental units at Rivage in Acton. And I'm going to get the lottery underway in just a few minutes, but first, just want to give you some background information on who applied and next steps and all of that. So if you have any questions during this session, you can unmute yourself. You were muted when you came into the session, just so we can minimize any outside noise. And this is also a recorded session, so it's going to be saved to our YouTube channel later on tonight. So all of this information that I'm about to give you is going to be provided in an attachment to an email later on tonight. So don't worry about jotting any of it down, because you will have it in writing. But just to start off, everyone who applied for and was eligible for this lottery should have a lottery application number. So that lottery application number is in the form of A.001, for example. So in this case, the numbers are between A.001 and A.066. So if you don't have that number, or you don't have the email that has that number, let me know, because that is what is going to be called tonight, rather than your first and last name for privacy purposes. So there's 58 total affordable units. There were 63 total applications. So there's going to be 63 households in the lottery. The lottery application numbers go up to 66 because we needed to remove 3 duplicate applications. So that's why that's a little different from the number of applicants that applied. So there's 24 one-bedroom affordable apartments. There's 21 applicants for those 24 units. There's 28 two-bedroom apartments. There's 17 applicants for those 2 bedrooms. One of those 2 bedrooms is a disabled accessible unit, and there were 5 people who indicated that they require the accessible features. So those 5 people will have priority for that one disabled accessible 2 bedroom. There's also 6 3-bedroom apartments, and there were 33 applicants for those 3-bedroom units. One of the 3 bedrooms is also disabled accessible, so 4 applicants indicated a need for a accessible 3-bedroom, and those applicants will have priority for that unit. So back when you completed your lottery application, you indicated, and we at SCB Housing confirmed your household type. And so just keep in mind that for 2 and 3-bedroom apartments, the larger type 2 or 3 households are going to have priority over smaller type 1 or type 2 households on those waiting lists. And that's because the program is designed to make sure that households don't have priority for a unit that has more bedrooms than their family might actually require. So we'll see that on the waiting list, or in the information packet, we have it kind of spelled out for you as well. So how the waiting lists are going to be prioritized. There's also local preference for some of the units. So if you answered yes to the local preference question on the lottery application, we will have confirmed for you if you did so in your email that had your lottery application number. But just know that some of the units will have local preference households ahead of non-local preference households. So all of that is to say, when I do the drawings tonight, you're not going to know for certain exactly where your household or where your lottery application number stands on the waiting list, even if you're drawn first. And that's because I first need to sort the results onto the waiting list based off of the priorities for household type, whether or not a household needs a disabled accessible unit, or whether or not you have local preference. So the good news for that is, I will be doing that tonight. So you'll get an email from info@scbhousing.com that will have the waiting list attached to it, and you'll know in just a few hours where you fall on the waiting list. The other good news for this lottery specifically is that really for both the 1-bedroom and 2 bedrooms, if you qualify, you should be able to reserve an apartment, because there's less applicants than there are bedrooms, or less applicants than there are affordable units. The 3 bedrooms, we had a lot more interest in terms of there being 33 applicants and only 6 affordable 3 bedrooms. But If you only apply for a 1 or a 2 bedroom, you will have the opportunity to reserve one of those units, provided that you are, you go through the eligibility screenings and all of that, and you are considered lease approved and also eligible for the affordable housing program. So there's going to be 2 lottery drawings tonight, and I'm going to be using a website called random.org to complete the drawings. First, I'm going to do the local preference drawing. That's going to include households who either live in Acton or work full-time in the town, or have children going to school in Acton Public Schools. So I'll put the application numbers for the 15 households who indicated that they have local preference into a function on this website, which I will show to you in just a minute so you can get a sense of what it's going to look like. And the website will generate a random order. And that should, doing it electronically this way should keep things truly random. And then I'll be doing the local preference then after the local preference drawing, I'll be doing the general drawing. So that includes everyone who applied for and was eligible for this lottery. So all 63 lottery household numbers will go into the list randomizer on this website, and it will generate a order digitally. So the randomization of the numbers is instantaneous. I'll be sharing my screen so you'll be able to see it. I'm actually going to share my screen now just to kind of give you a demonstration of how that's going to work. This isn't the drawing just yet, but I just want you to kind of be able to see what it's going to look like. So I'm just on Google now, and then I'm going to go to random.org. And it's just this very basic looking website. I'm going to scroll down to list randomizer. When I copy and paste the lottery application numbers into this box here, when I'm doing the lottery drawing, it's going to be, the numbers are going to be in the format that you are familiar with. So a dot, a series of numbers. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to click randomize, and it spits out a random order of priority. So that's how the lottery is going to work. As you can see here, the number 3 was first, number 5 was last, and that's how the drawing is going to go. So I'll come back into here and I'll share my screen again in just a minute when I do the actual drawing. So the waiting lists that will be compiled after the drawing and after I sort the results onto the waiting list by priority, that indicates the position that your household will be able to reserve a unit ahead of other households. So if you're number 1 on the 2-bedroom waiting list, you will have first choice at the available 2-bedroom apartments after you've completed a lease screening with the management team over at Rivage. So, and also keep in mind when you're looking at the waiting list, keep in mind that if you indicated interest, you said you were interested in more than 1 unit size, you're going to be on more than 1 waiting list. And actually everyone will be on more than 1 waiting list because there is a local preference waiting list and a non-local preference waiting list, but for each unit size, I think with the exception of 1 bedrooms maybe, but you will have a position on both of the waiting lists regardless of whether or not you have local preference. It's a little bit confusing, but if you're a non-local preference household, you're going to have a place on the local preference waiting list. You're just going to be further down the waiting list from the local preference household. So just keep that in mind. You should be looking in more than 1 spot for your application number. So after the drawing and after the waiting lists are compiled, like I mentioned, you're going to receive an email with the waiting list. And the top households on each waiting list, those application numbers are going to be highlighted in green. And that's because those are the households who are going to immediately be invited forward to the next step in the process, which is to complete the lease application with the leasing office at Rivage. So as I mentioned before, if you attended the information session or if you looked at the info packet, that lease screening is separate from SEB housing screenings. So it is very similar to if you've rented elsewhere. They might be doing a credit check, background check, rental history check, that sort of thing. And so you'll be in touch with the leasing office for that. Your contact information is going to be shared with them after tonight, and you will also have their email and phone number as well to get in touch with them to schedule your lease screening. And if you're found lease eligible, the household with the highest position on the waiting list, like I mentioned, will have the first opportunity to select and reserve an apartment. And then if you're not the top household, you're just going to have to wait until the first unit is reserved and so on, and it goes down the list. If your number is not highlighted in green on the waiting list that you received tonight, it doesn't mean that you won't have the opportunity to move forward at some point in this process. You just would need to wait until applicants ahead of you on the waiting list drop off. So if you're number 10 on the 3-bedroom waiting list, there's only 6 units, so you would have to, someone would have to drop out or be considered or be denied because of, maybe they're over income or they didn't respond or what it may be. And that certainly happens. We anticipate that that'll happen on every waiting list. So just keep that in mind. And then it's important too to keep in mind that SEB Housing hasn't collected any income information from you yet. So you were found to be eligible for this lottery based off of what you self-reported on your lottery application. So after you do the lease screening with the leasing office, you'll be referred back to SEB Housing for your program screening, and you will have to submit, pay stubs, Social Security statements, tax returns, that sort of thing, so we can formally confirm your eligibility for the affordable housing program. So you should have received also a documentation requirements guide as a link in the email that notifies you that you were eligible for this lottery. So that sort of details everything that you'll need to submit to us after the lottery. So take a look at that. And then final couple things before I run the drawings. The first affordable units at Rivage, we've been told, are scheduled for occupancy in December or potentially in early 2026, but the leasing office is pre-leasing units now, so there shouldn't be much of a wait at all for you to move along after the lottery is held. And then the final reminder, we always just like to remind everyone that if you end up renting one of the affordable apartments, you want to know that you'll have a recertification every year. So if you were to sign a lease for January 1st, sometime in the fall of next year, you would be asked to recertify your income to confirm whether or not you're still eligible for the affordable housing program. You would have to submit updated pay stubs and all of that. So either just make sure that you have access to pay stubs and things like that online, or just maintain a record of your income and tax returns for as long as you're renting an affordable unit. All right, so I'm ready to do the drawings. Does anyone have any questions before I do that? I pull up all my spreadsheets and things here, and I'll screen share again. All right, I'm going to go back to random.org. I'm going to screen share again. We're going to do the lottery drawings for Rivage at Acton. All right, so random.org. Going back to list randomizer. First, I'm going to do the local preference drawing. This is only going to include the 15 lottery application numbers that are here, because these lottery application numbers belong to the households who have local preference. They live or they work full-time in Acton. All right, so these are the 15 lottery application numbers here. And I'm going to click randomize, and this is going to be the order of priority for those local preference households. And then I'm going to follow it by doing the same thing with all 63 application numbers. So this is the local preference drawing for Rivage at Acton. All right. As you can see, number 63 was first there. I'm going to just take a second and kind of plop this data over here. And just give me 1 second here. make it a little bit easier to read. And I'm going to hide that. And then I'm going to come back to this. So anyone who's on the call that wants me to find their number or can't see it, I can look it up for you. So the next thing I'm going to do is the local preference, or sorry, the general drawing for Rivage. So I'm going to go back to random.org. I'm going to completely X out of that and go back to list randomizer so we get a fresh page there. And I'm going to highlight all of these 63 application numbers. So this is everyone who applied for and was eligible for the lottery for Rivage at Acton. All 63 numbers are just placed into this list randomizer function here, and I'm going to click randomize, and this is the general drawing for Rivage at Acton. So all 63 numbers are here. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste this into my Excel sheet. It's a little easier for everyone to read, I think. And then we have a record of it here. So just one second. So that's the lottery drawing. I'm going to go back to the local drawing here. If you're a local preference household, I'm going to maximize this a little bit. All 15 fit on the screen, so you can have a look there. If you're a local preference household, you're going to have a position on the waiting list that is a little bit higher than households who don't have local preference on the local preference list. And then for the general drawing, everyone, for the waiting lists that don't have local preference, this general drawing order is going to be followed when we're sorting the results onto those waiting lists. So I'm going to maximize this a little bit, and I'll scroll down so all 63 numbers are visible. So the first number drawn, as you can see, was 14, and we'll go down from there. So if you weren't able to see your number, you can either unmute yourself or send a message in the chat function, and I can look that up for you. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up the information packet. Sometimes there's questions about the waiting list. Page 11 of the info packet is here. This is the order of priority. So what I mean when I'm saying local preference households, how are they going to, or local preference waiting list, how are we going to sort the results? So if you look at the one-bedroom apartments that have local preference, this waiting list, the first priority is going to be all local preference households. The bottom priority is going to be all non-local preference households. And then household types come into play when you're talking about the 2 and 3 bedrooms. So for 16 of the 2-bedroom apartments, local preference will come into play, and we'll sort by these categories. And then the general waiting list here, it doesn't matter. This is an error here. This shouldn't say local preference, because there is no local preference for the general waiting list. Any questions? I'm going to bring the results up again here for the general drawing. And you will get an email from me, but it'll be through info@SCB Housing later on tonight that will have a copy of the waiting list and some more information, a lot of the stuff that I mentioned during this call, letting you know about the next steps. All right, we'll be in touch. Thank you for attending. And of course, if you get the email and you have any questions, feel free to reach back out to us and we can assist. Good night, everyone.